The Sunday after I returned from my sabbatical, I shared what I described as kind of an aha moment. I said one of my little diversions during the 3 months was to watch the entire 6 seasons of The Sopranos, which I completed about 2 weeks ago. And I'm not recommending the series. I couldn't help but tell the story about Arnie and his kitchen, the Vesuvio. And basically, Arnie, he wasn't happy. He was the proprietor. He was unhappy. His business was suffering until the night that he got back into the kitchen and rediscovered the joy of cooking, which is where he should have been in the first place, instead of out schmoozing with the customers and running the business. And I pointed out that my kitchen was the place where I create what I do here every Sunday, my place of service and my place of passionate creativity. Well, after I told the story and preached the sermon, I bumped into Nancy Lucy out in the hall who had a vase full of flowers which she gleaned from one of the arrangements. And she said, "Well, I have to go. I'm going to the Cortez Trailer Park, which is where she lives. And I'm going to deliver these flowers because the trailer park is my kitchen." And I thought about that and I realized I'm not the only one who has a kitchen. Everybody has a kitchen. Each one of you has a kitchen. Everybody has an arena for service, or as we like to call it in church, a ministry. And everyone needs an outlet for their passionate creativity, their spiritual giftedness. Where is your kitchen? Sometimes we lose track of our kitchens, or sometimes they simply kind of die of neglect. We have a bunch of folks who made the transition from their own personal residences to Freedom Village, which is a very large, beautiful retirement center in Bradenton. And one of those families are the Baileys, Bill and Jean. And they both love food. In fact, Bill used to be a food critic for a local newspaper. But they no longer cook, although they have a lovely kitchen in their apartment in Freedom Village. I said, "Well, what do you do with the kitchen?" And they said, "We use it for storage." We use the oven for storage, and we stack stuff on top of the stovetop and so forth. Well, sometimes we just don't take advantage of the kitchen that we have. And sometimes our kitchen changes over time. Our station in life changes. Our calling somewhat changes. I'm thinking about some of the gentlemen I've known in this congregation over the years who have suddenly been cast in the role of caretakers and cooks. Their wife, who was the homemaker for many, many years, and the cook, can no longer cook. And so now they have to begin to cook. And even though some of them could never even boil water, and yet they've had to learn some new skills. Their kitchen has changed places, and so they've had to adapt. Well, your kitchen may literally be a kitchen, or it may be something else or somewhere else. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about my daughter's kitchen. It's in a public school in Indiana with 900 low-income kids. I think of other persons in our own congregation who have found their kitchen. I mentioned Freedom Village. I don't know if Donna Dolan is here today. Donna, are you here? There she is. She's found her kitchen at Freedom Village. She's carved out this little parish in Freedom Village, this circle of families that she visits and cares for every week. And they love her, and she loves being there. I think about one of our ministries, the Stowe Point House of Prayer, and Ann Summers. Ann, are you here this morning? There she is. She's created her own little kitchen there at Stowe Point House of Prayer. She started a children's library for migrant children. And not only that, but she comes every week and she reads a story to them. I haven't seen her in action, but I hear she's a real Pied Piper. They love that story time, and they love their little library. So Ann has found her kitchen there. Well, I'm thinking about Peter Mattina this morning, who I don't think is here because I think he is literally in his kitchen at home preparing a family dinner. And as you know, he's a great cook. He'll be preparing our spaghetti sauce this coming week. But Peter Mattina's kitchen has been for almost 40 years a little medical office in Bradenton, where he's a dermatologist, caring for the same people year after year after year, driving up, parking in the same spot, putting his key in the same lock, and tending to the same people with a very compassionate and competent practice there. What a beautiful thing to offer. I'm thinking this morning of an old tennis buddy of mine whose wife, Ellen, about 8 years ago, started writing books. And her kitchen has become her little study in her home with her little word processor. And it was about 8 years ago, and Ellen, who's a little older than I am, decided she wanted to write a book. And many of us have made that determination. Some of us have written books, and some would like to write books, but she started doing it, and she actually got one published. This year, 8 years later, she's completing her 18th historical romance novel. And many of those have been bestsellers. She found her kitchen in her study. Now, the last person I'm thinking of this morning is sitting up in the balcony. It's Rob Crafts. You know Rob. As you look out the windows here, you can see his beautiful handiwork. This garden, these grounds, are Rob's kitchen. Well, ironically, Rob was trained to be an educator, not a landscape architect. But at this point in his life, this has become his calling and his ministry, his mission, and his kitchen. God has uniquely gifted us for creative, productive, and fulfilling lives. And the key to contentment is figuring out where our kitchen is, where our place of service, and where our place of creativity really lies. And this is a very personal thing, and a very unique thing, but it's where the joy of life resides. The joy of life is in the joy of cooking, of being in the kitchen. The joy of cooking. Some of you have that book. Not The Joy of Sex, that's another one. That's the one you put in your closet and hid from your kids. Or if you were liberated, you put it where they could see it so they could learn something. But the joy of cooking, the joy of being in your own kitchen, creativity, and service. And as I said, this is a very personal thing. Just like a person's kitchen is very personal. And you know, there's nothing like seeing a great chef at work in his or her own kitchen. It's a very personal thing. In fact, some people get very, very possessive of their kitchens. Now, in my home, I have abdicated the kitchen to Connie. Not because she's a woman, because she's a great cook. And she finds so much joy in working in that kitchen. So I finally let go of it. We've had a little struggle in our married life because we've lived alone, both of us, and had our own households. And, you know, there's a little bit of a give and take here on, you know, how you organize your household and so forth. But I've abdicated the kitchen to her, and she does a wonderful job with it. And there's something very special about having your own kitchen to create in. The problem that we often face is that, symbolically speaking, we often end up cooking in somebody else's kitchen, living somebody else's life, fulfilling somebody else's dream for our life. And where we're simply living our life according to somebody else's expectations and agenda for our life, we become dutiful, resentful, fatigued, and joyless.